History is filled with people who followed the rules. One unexpected decision would take her far beyond the world she had always known, and into the studio of one of the 20th century.
History has a way of reducing extraordinary lives to a single photograph. One elegant portrait, one glamorous headline, one unforgettable reputation. And in the case of C.Z. Guest, history often remembers only the polished image, the perfectly tailored white blouse, the effortless smile, the impeccable posture, the woman whose name became synonymous with elegance, sophistication, and the highest levels of American society. To generations of Americans, she represented an ideal: grace without excess, wealth without ostentation, and style that seemed timeless rather than fashionable. She appeared to embody a world where refinement came naturally, where every gesture seemed effortless, and where true elegance required no explanation. Yet photographs rarely reveal the complexity of a person's life. Behind every famous image lies a far richer story, hidden beneath decades of admiration, assumptions, and carefully preserved public appearances. She entertained presidents. She dined with royalty. She appeared on the covers of the world's most prestigious magazines. Fashion editors studied her wardrobe. Photographers competed to capture her image. Gardeners admired her landscapes. Writers celebrated her poise. By the middle of the 20th century, C.Z. Guest had become more than a socialite. She had become an American institution. To many, she represented the highest standard of American sophistication. Her name appeared wherever influence, culture, and elegance intersected. Whether attending charity galas, welcoming distinguished guests, or walking through her famous gardens, she projected an image of effortless confidence. Yet public admiration often creates simplified legends. The more famous she became, the less people questioned how she reached such remarkable heights. The polished image overshadowed the unpredictable path that had carried her there. But if you had met her years earlier, before the photographers, before the headlines, before she became one of the most admired women in America, you might never have predicted such a future, because long before she entered the glittering world of international high society, she found herself in a place that seemed completely at odds with everything her future would represent. Not in the drawing rooms of New York, not in the grand estates of Long Island, not among the wealthiest families of the Eastern establishment, but in Mexico, far from elegant ballrooms and fashionable gatherings. She entered an environment alive with creativity, political debate, and revolutionary ideas. It was a setting unlike anything expected for a young woman from one of America's privileged families, and it would introduce her to one of the century's most extraordinary personalities. There, surrounded by scaffolding, buckets of pigment, and walls transformed into enormous works of public art, she crossed paths with one of the 20th century's most influential and controversial artists, Diego Rivera. To admirers, Rivera was a revolutionary genius who believed that art should belong to ordinary people rather than private collectors. His murals celebrated workers, farmers, and the struggles of everyday life. They transformed schools, government buildings, and public spaces into monumental stories of history, labor, and social change. His work inspired millions, challenged conventions, and turned ordinary walls into unforgettable masterpieces. For a young American woman raised among wealth and privilege, entering Rivera's artistic world meant stepping into an environment completely unlike the society she had always known. Yet Rivera's artistic brilliance could never be separated from his politics. An outspoken communist, he criticized capitalism, celebrated labor movements, and maintained friendships with some of the most controversial political figures of his era. His beliefs fascinated supporters while alarming critics, especially in the United States during a time of growing political tension. The idea that a young American woman from an elite family would agree to sit for such a man seemed almost unimaginable, and yet she did. That single encounter became one of the most discussed episodes of her early life, not because it defined her future, but because it revealed qualities many had overlooked: curiosity, confidence, independence. She was willing to cross boundaries that society quietly expected women of her generation never to approach. It is tempting to imagine history as a series of straight lines. A wealthy girl grows up, she marries well, she lives comfortably, she fades quietly into the background of privilege. But real lives are rarely so predictable. The story of C.Z. Guest is not simply the story of wealth, nor is it merely the story of fashion. It is a story of reinvention, a story about moving between worlds that seemed impossible to reconcile, between artists and aristocrats, between political controversy and social prestige, between personal independence and public expectation. Each stage of her life challenged assumptions about what an American socialite could become. Rather than remaining confined within a single identity, she continually adapted while preserving the grace that would eventually make her famous. It is also the story of America itself, during one of the most transformative centuries in its history. A nation emerging from extraordinary wealth, then shaken by economic collapse, transformed by global war, redefined by international influence, and increasingly fascinated by celebrity, culture, and status. As America changed, so too did the meaning of elegance. The old social order slowly gave way to a modern age shaped by magazines, cinema, television, and worldwide fame. Many famous personalities disappeared as society evolved, unable to adapt to changing tastes and expectations. Yet C.Z. Guest remained admired through every transformation. Her reputation endured because she represented something that transcended fashion, an image of timeless refinement that appealed across generations. But perhaps the greatest mystery surrounding her life is not how she became famous. It is how she managed to remain respected in worlds that so often consumed the people who entered them. Even as photographers documented nearly every public appearance, friends described her as disciplined rather than extravagant, independent rather than rebellious, confident without arrogance. Yet none of that explains where her remarkable journey truly began. To understand that, we must travel back to an America where old fortunes still shape society, where family names opened doors, and where a young girl's future often seemed decided before she was old enough to choose it herself. Before she became C.Z. Guest, before the magazine covers, before the White House invitations, before becoming the queen of American high society, she was simply Barbara Cushing Ziegler, and like every extraordinary story, hers began long before the world knew her name. To understand Barbara Cushing Ziegler, long before the world knew her as C.Z.'s Guest, we first have to understand the America that shaped her. The opening decades of the 20th century were an age of extraordinary contrasts. On one side stood immense fortunes built during the Gilded Age. Railroad empires, banking dynasties, steel magnates, and industrial families had accumulated levels of wealth the nation had never seen before. Grand mansions lined Fifth Avenue in New York, while Newport's famous summer cottages were in reality palaces overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. Lavish balls, exclusive clubs, fox hunts, and elegant charity galas defined the rhythm of America's highest social circles. Yet beyond those glittering drawing rooms, another America was rapidly emerging. Millions of immigrants arrived seeking opportunity. Factories transformed cities, women demanded greater rights, and revolutionary technologies reshaped everyday life. The nation stood between tradition and transformation. It was into this changing America that Barbara Cushing Ziegler was born on September 19, 1920, in Boston, Massachusetts. Although she would later become closely associated with New York's elite, her earliest years reflected the values of an established New England family. Her parents provided comfort and security, while emphasizing discipline, education, and personal responsibility, qualities that would remain with her throughout her life. Unlike the dramatic childhoods often associated with famous socialites, Barbara's youth was remarkably stable. Family traditions shaped her daily life, and she developed a deep appreciation for the outdoors. Even as a young girl, she seemed happiest far from formal gatherings. She preferred open fields to crowded ballrooms, quiet countryside to social ceremonies, and the companionship of animals over endless conversation. Among all her interests, horses quickly became her greatest passion. Long before she became a celebrated fashion icon, Barbara had already become an accomplished horsewoman. Riding demanded patience, balance, discipline, and quiet confidence, the very qualities that later defined her public image. Friends would eventually remark that she carried herself with the same effortless grace in a saddle as she did in the grandest ballroom. Her love of horses represented something much deeper than a hobby. It revealed a personality that found genuine happiness in the simplicity of country life rather than the glamour of society. This connection to nature naturally expanded into another lifelong passion: gardening. Years before magnificent gardens became closely associated with her name, Barbara had already discovered peace among flowers, trees, and carefully designed landscapes. These quiet interests distinguished her from many of her privileged contemporaries. As Barbara grew older, she received the education expected of a young woman from a prominent American family. Schools emphasized culture, etiquette, literature, languages, and the social skills considered essential for entering elite society. For many women of her generation, life followed a predictable path, but Barbara possessed a quiet curiosity that drew her toward art beyond America's shores. The world was entering one of the most turbulent periods in modern history. Following the Mexican Revolution, artists transformed public buildings into monumental works, celebrating workers, history, and social change. No artist stood higher than Diego Rivera, whose breathtaking murals made him both internationally admired and politically controversial. Barbara could not have known that her own path would soon cross Rivera's. Yet that unexpected meeting would unite two worlds that seemed destined never to meet, and become one of the most remarkable turning points in her early life. By the late 1930s, the world seemed to stand at a crossroads. Europe drifted steadily toward another devastating war. Political ideologies competed for influence across continents, and newspapers carried stories of rising international tensions almost every day. Yet amid this uncertainty, there were places where creativity flourished with extraordinary energy. One of those places was Mexico City. To artists, architects, photographers, writers, and intellectuals, Mexico had become far more than a destination. It had become a laboratory of ideas. The Mexican Revolution had transformed not only the nation's politics, but also its cultural identity. Public buildings became enormous canvases where stories of revolution, indigenous heritage, labor, and national pride were painted for everyone to see. Art was no longer reserved for wealthy collectors. It belonged to ordinary people, displayed proudly across schools, government buildings, and public spaces throughout the country. At the center of this artistic revolution stood three legendary painters known collectively as Los Tres Grandes, the Three Greats: Jos Clemente Orozco, David Alfaro Siqueiros, and above all, Diego Rivera. Rivera was impossible to ignore. His powerful physical presence matched the scale of his monumental murals. He celebrated workers, farmers, and indigenous communities, believing that history belonged not only to presidents and kings, but also to ordinary people whose stories had long been overlooked. His paintings challenged artistic conventions, while his outspoken communist beliefs challenged political power. Rivera criticized capitalism and economic inequality with remarkable confidence, earning devoted admirers and equally passionate critics. His marriage to the celebrated artist Frida Kahlo made them one of the most famous artistic couples in the world, attracting visitors, journalists, politicians, and creative minds from across the globe. It was into this extraordinary environment that a young Barbara Cushing Ziegler arrived. Compared with Rivera's revolutionary artistic world, Barbara's upbringing could hardly have been more different. She had grown up surrounded by comfort, tradition, and the quiet expectations of America's upper class, while Rivera had built his career questioning many of those very social structures. Yet history often turns on meetings that seem unlikely. Barbara's visit introduced her to a creative atmosphere unlike anything she had previously experienced. Studios buzzed with activity as assistants mixed pigments by hand. Sketches covered tables and walls. Massive scaffolding surrounded unfinished murals that transformed entire buildings into breathtaking works of art. Sunlight streamed through high windows, illuminating canvases, brushes, and fresh paint. For Barbara, the experience must have been both unfamiliar and deeply inspiring. Inside Rivera's studio, there were no rigid social rituals, no formal seating arrangements, no carefully rehearsed etiquette, only ideas, conversation, and the relentless pursuit of artistic creation. Rivera believed every face carried a story worth preserving, whether painting laborers, children, farmers, or members of high society. He searched for character rather than status. When Barbara agreed to pose for him, it became one of the most unusual intersections of two remarkably different worlds. Contrary to later myths, historians find no evidence that the portrait represented a rejection of her privileged upbringing or an embrace of Rivera's political beliefs. Instead, it reflected a period when artists, intellectuals, and visitors from many backgrounds gathered around Rivera's creative circle, united by curiosity rather than ideology. Even so, context mattered. Rivera, quote, "'s political reputation made any association with him notable. To many Americans, meeting the famous muralist inspired admiration, curiosity, and sometimes suspicion for Barbara. However, the portrait revealed something far more important than politics. It demonstrated her quiet confidence. She willingly stepped into unfamiliar environments, never appearing intimidated by celebrated figures or overly concerned with public opinion. That independence would become one of the defining qualities of her life, surprising those who believed they already understood her. Yet Rivera's studio marked only the beginning of her remarkable journey. Beyond Mexico waited another world of grand estates, diplomatic receptions, international fashion, and immense social influence. There, she would meet the man whose surname would eventually become famous around the world. Together, they would form one of the most admired partnerships in 20th century American high society. When Barbara Cushing Ziegler returned to the United States, she carried more than memories from Mexico. She had witnessed a different world, one where artists debated politics as passionately as others discussed business, where creativity often mattered more than social status, and where bold ideas challenged long-standing traditions. But the America she returned to was entering one of the most uncertain chapters in its history. Across Europe, the threat of war grew darker with each passing month. Newspapers were filled with alarming headlines, and families wondered whether another global conflict could still be avoided. Then, in September 1939, Germany invaded Poland. Britain and France declared war only days later, and the Second World War had begun. Although the United States would remain officially neutral for 2 more years, the conflict was already reshaping American society in profound ways. While the world prepared for war, Barbara's own life was moving in a very different direction. During these years, she met Winston Frederick Churchill Guest, a man whose family name carried enormous prestige on both sides of the Atlantic. Although many assumed he was closely related to Britain's wartime Prime Minister Winston Churchill, the connection was distant. Even so, the Guest family itself stood among the most distinguished names in British aristocratic and American high society. Winston was far more than the heir to a famous family. Tall, athletic, and charismatic, he had earned national recognition as one of America's leading polo players. The sport demanded exceptional skill, discipline, and an enduring partnership with horses. For Barbara, whose lifelong love of riding had shaped her character since childhood, their shared passion created an immediate and genuine bond. Unlike many fashionable romances built entirely around society events, Barbara and Winston shared interests that reached far beyond elegant ballrooms. Both loved country life, treasured horses, and valued privacy, despite living increasingly public lives. As nations struggled through years of uncertainty, They quietly planned a future together. In 1947, Barbara married Winston Guest. With that marriage, Barbara Cushing Ziegler became C.Z. Guest. Those simple initials would soon become recognized across America. Marriage welcomed her into one of the most influential social circles of the post-war era. Yet entering high society was only the beginning. History is filled with people who inherited privilege only to fade into obscurity. C.Z. Guest would follow an entirely different path. She would redefine what it meant to be an American socialite. After the Second World War, the United States emerged as the world's leading economic power. New fortunes were created, old dynasties adapted, and New York became an international center of finance, fashion, publishing, and culture. Society itself was changing. Magazines, Hollywood, and television were creating a new kind of celebrity whose influence extended far beyond traditional aristocratic circles. C.Z. Guest possessed something that could never be manufactured: authenticity. People described her as elegant without seeming artificial, reserved without appearing distant, and confident without demanding attention. Ironically, her reluctance to chase publicity made photographers even more eager to capture her image. Editors soon realized that readers were captivated by her effortless sophistication, transforming her into one of America's most admired style icons. C.Z. Guest dressed beautifully, but never extravagantly. Designers admired the timeless simplicity of her wardrobe. Women across America sought to emulate her understated elegance, yet behind every glamorous photograph remained the same woman who preferred riding horses through the countryside to spending endless evenings beneath glittering chandeliers. Friends often noticed this remarkable balance. She could attend the grandest gala in Manhattan one night, then spend the following morning tending gardens or caring for horses. Perhaps that balance explains why her reputation endured while many fashionable celebrities faded from memory. She never allowed glamour to define her entire identity. As the prosperous 1950s unfolded, photographers called her one of the world's best-dressed women. Designers sought her approval. Journalists compared her influence to royalty. And before long, even the White House would come to know the name C.Z. Guest. By the early 1950s, the United States was entering a new age of confidence. The hardships of the Great Depression were fading into memory, and the Second World War had come to an end. Factories that had once produced tanks and aircraft now manufactured automobiles, refrigerators, and the conveniences of modern life. America's economy surged, suburbs expanded across the landscape, and television sets appeared in millions of homes. The nation was becoming wealthier than ever before. But prosperity also brought a new fascination with style, image, and aspiration. People wanted to know how the wealthy lived, what they wore, where they traveled, and how they entertained. Society magazines became windows into a glamorous world that seemed almost mythical. Few people came to represent that world more completely than C.Z. Guest. Yet what made C.Z. Guest extraordinary was never simply her wealth or her social position. Many women attended exclusive parties, wore expensive gowns, and belonged to influential families. What set her apart was an effortless confidence that seemed impossible to imitate. Fashion critics often struggled to explain her appeal because she rarely followed trends with blind enthusiasm. Instead, she embraced timeless simplicity: crisp white blouses, perfectly tailored trousers, elegant riding clothes, and classic evening gowns became her signature. She understood something the fashion world would spend decades rediscovering: that true elegance never demands attention. It earns admiration quietly. Designers praised her instinct, photographers admired her natural presence, and writers celebrated her remarkable restraint in an era when glamour often meant excess. Before long, magazines consistently ranked C.Z. Guest among the world's best-dressed women. Year after year, her reputation continued to grow, not because she constantly reinvented herself, but because she remained unmistakably herself. People trusted her taste because it never appeared manufactured. Behind every polished photograph stood a woman who valued practicality as much as beauty. She loved riding horses, spent countless hours outdoors, and found peace in carefully designed gardens. Those passions naturally influenced the clothes she wore. Her wardrobe reflected the life she genuinely enjoyed rather than one created solely for photographers. That authenticity distinguished her from many public figures, whose carefully crafted images rarely matched their private lives. As her influence expanded, so did the remarkable circles in which she moved. Diplomats, business leaders, artists, editors, designers, Hollywood stars, European aristocrats, and prominent political families all became part of her world. Her guest lists increasingly resembled a gathering of the 20th century's most recognizable names. Yet despite this extraordinary network, friends consistently described her as approachable and gracious. She listened more than she spoke, avoided unnecessary gossip, and rarely sought attention simply for the sake of publicity. These qualities earned her respect that reached far beyond fashionable society. By the middle of the decade, C.Z. Guest had become much more than a celebrated socialite. She had become a cultural symbol of post-war American confidence and timeless sophistication. Readers admired not only C.Z. Guest's wardrobe, but also the life it appeared to represent: order, grace, confidence, and quiet self-assurance. Yet away from magazine covers and flashing cameras, another side of her life remained largely unseen. She preferred the peaceful rhythm of gardens to glamorous parties, and devoted countless hours to caring for horses she regarded as lifelong companions rather than symbols of wealth. Unlike many celebrities who built their identities around constant public appearances, CZ found genuine happiness in privacy. Those who knew her often wondered how someone so visible could remain so grounded. Perhaps the answer lay in her understanding that fame would always be temporary, while character had the power to endure. That quiet philosophy shaped every stage of CZ Guest's remarkable life. It also prepared her for an even larger role in the decades ahead. Soon she would move comfortably among presidents, first ladies, diplomats, royalty, and many of the 20th century's most influential figures. For others, entering such circles required relentless ambition. For CZ, it seemed almost effortless. Meanwhile, history continued moving forward. The Cold War reshaped global politics. Television created new celebrities almost overnight, and American culture evolved at an astonishing pace. Many familiar names from traditional high society gradually disappeared from public attention. Others became reminders of a fading era. CZ Guest accomplished something far more difficult. She adapted without sacrificing the qualities that had first made her admired. That rare balance ensured her influence would extend well beyond the fashionable salons of the 1950s and the most significant years of her public life. By the late 1950s, CZ Guest was no longer simply a familiar face in society columns. She had become a benchmark, a woman whose opinions on style carried genuine influence, whose presence elevated every event, and whose name had become synonymous with timeless elegance. In many ways, she occupied a unique place in American culture. She was neither an actress, nor a politician, nor a business executive. Yet she moved effortlessly among all three worlds. That rare ability allowed her to cross social boundaries with remarkable ease. Whether attending elegant dinners, charity galas, or diplomatic receptions, she seemed equally comfortable in every setting. It was not wealth alone that opened these doors. It was the quiet confidence and authenticity that made people remember her long after every gathering had ended. On any given evening, a dinner hosted by CZ Guest might bring together diplomats discussing international affairs, celebrated artists debating modern culture, best-selling authors exchanging ideas, and industrial leaders helping shape America's economic future. She seemed perfectly at ease with each of them. Friends often recalled that she never dominated conversations or sought attention for herself. Instead, she asked thoughtful questions, remembered names, and listened with genuine curiosity. These simple habits made her unforgettable in rooms filled with extraordinary people. As her reputation continued to grow, invitations arrived from the highest levels of American society, including the White House. Across multiple presidential administrations, she remained a respected guest, admired for her grace, discretion, and ability to build friendships that transcended politics and changing generations. C.Z. Guest also became one of photography's favorite subjects. Unlike many celebrities, she never appeared to be performing for the camera. She simply presented herself with quiet confidence. A crisp, white shirt, dark tailored trousers, pearls, minimal jewelry, effortless elegance. These photographs became timeless because they reflected personality rather than passing fashion. Designers frequently pointed to C.Z. as the perfect example of understated style, while women across America discovered that refinement did not require extravagance. Confidence itself could become the greatest accessory. Even as bold fashions transformed the 1960s, she never abandoned her identity. Rather than constantly reinventing herself, she simply refined the style that had already become unmistakably her own. Fashion represented only one part of C.Z. Guest's remarkable life. Away from public events, another lifelong passion quietly flourished: gardens. Long before lifestyle magazines made gardening fashionable, she regarded landscapes as living works of art. Unlike paintings, gardens changed with every season. Unlike buildings, they breathed, grew, and demanded patience. She devoted countless hours to studying flowers, trees, and landscape design, with the same careful attention that fashion editors gave to clothing. Eventually, her knowledge became so respected that she began sharing gardening advice with a much wider audience. Readers soon discovered that the glamorous socialite they admired also possessed genuine expertise, discipline, and a deep understanding of the natural world. Perhaps that discovery should never have surprised anyone. Throughout her life, C.Z. Guest repeatedly demonstrated that appearances rarely revealed the whole story. The woman photographed beneath glittering chandeliers was often happiest outdoors, surrounded by flowers, trees, and horses. She represented luxury while appreciating simplicity. She belonged to high society, yet remained deeply connected to nature. She attended glamorous dinners, but found equal joy walking through a quiet garden at sunrise. This remarkable balance became the foundation of her enduring public image. While many famous personalities gradually became prisoners of celebrity, C.Z. seemed refreshingly untouched by it. She understood that admiration would always fade, fashions would always change, but character had the power to endure through every generation. As the 1960s unfolded, America entered another period of extraordinary transformation. Civil rights movements challenged long-standing institutions. Youth culture questioned tradition, and music, politics, fashion, and popular culture evolved with breathtaking speed. Many symbols of the old social order quietly disappeared from public life. Yet somehow, C.Z. Guest remained relevant. She adapted without abandoning the qualities that had first made her admired. She survived changing fashions, changing presidents, and changing generations, while continuing to embody an elegance that seemed untouched by time. But the greatest chapter of her story was no longer about becoming famous. It was about preserving something far more lasting than reputation or style: her legacy, and proving that true influence is measured not by headlines, but by the values that continue to inspire long after the cameras have gone. History rarely stands still. The America that emerged after the Second World War was not the same America that entered the 1960s. A younger generation began questioning traditions their parents had accepted for decades. Fashion changed rapidly. Hemlines rose. Designs became more daring. Music, art, politics, and popular culture all moved in completely new directions. The social order that had shaped earlier generations began losing its influence. Many names that once dominated newspaper society pages slowly disappeared from public attention. For public figures connected to the old world of privilege, adapting became a difficult challenge. Some desperately chased new trends, while others refused to change at all. Both paths often led to the same result: being forgotten. But C.Z. Guest chose another way. She did not compete with younger generations. She did not abandon herself in search of attention. She remained authentic, and that decision allowed her to become timeless. Fashion historians often point to one quality that allowed CZ's guest's influence to survive changing decades. She built her image around principles rather than trends. Simplicity, quality, confidence, consistency. These values never truly disappear. Designers admired her ability to make even the most understated clothing appear unforgettable. A crisp, white shirt, perfectly tailored trousers, a simple strand of pearls, minimal accessories. Nothing seemed excessive. Nothing appeared forced. Her elegance came from restraint rather than decoration. But her style represented something deeper than fashion. It reflected discipline and a thoughtful approach to life. Friends noticed that whether she was choosing flowers for a garden, preparing for an important dinner, or riding horses through the countryside, she approached everything with patience and attention to detail. For CZ Guest, elegance was not something she performed. It was simply the way she lived. Unlike many celebrities who carefully created public images through constant publicity, CZ Guest valued something increasingly rare: privacy. She understood that not every moment of life needed to become public. This philosophy made her unusual during an era when fame itself was becoming a valuable commodity. Television expanded rapidly. Celebrity magazines multiplied. The private lives of famous people became entertainment for millions. Yet CZ maintained a clear boundary between her public role and her personal world. That restraint earned admiration. It preserved something that many public figures slowly lost: dignity. While others depended on constant attention to remain visible, CZ Guest understood that true influence did not require endless exposure. Her reputation grew not because she was always seen, but because every appearance carried meaning. As the years passed, another side of CZ Guest's life attracted increasing attention: her gardens. For many visitors, stepping onto one of her properties felt less like entering a private estate and more like walking through a living masterpiece. Every pathway appeared carefully designed. Every flower bed reflected intention. Every tree contributed to a larger vision. Gardening was never simply about displaying wealth. For CZ, it was about harmony. She viewed gardens as places of peace, patience, and renewal. Unlike fashion, which changes with every season, nature follows its own rhythm. Plants cannot be rushed. Beauty develops slowly through care and dedication. Perhaps that philosophy appealed to her because it reflected the way she approached life itself: steady, patient, unhurried. Through gardening, CZ found the same balance she had always sought between elegance and simplicity. Eventually, CZ Guest's knowledge of gardening led to books and newspaper columns, revealing a side of her personality that many people had never expected. The glamorous socialite was also a serious student of horticulture. She discussed soil, seasonal planting, and landscape design with the same confidence that fashion editors used when discussing couture. This surprised many people because it challenged the assumption that her elegance was merely decorative. It wasn't. It reflected curiosity, commitment, and a lifelong desire to continue learning. She could attend an elegant gala one evening and spend the next morning walking through her garden with muddy shoes. She could dine with diplomats and then disappear into the countryside to ride horses. She understood that a meaningful life was not measured only by public admiration. It was also measured by private happiness. Perhaps that understanding explains why CZ Guest remained admired across so many generations. She never appeared trapped by the expectations that came with fame. Instead, she quietly redefined what influence could look like: not loud, not dramatic, but lasting. As America approached the final decades of the 20th century, new designers, new celebrities, and new social figures entered the spotlight. Technology transformed communication. The world accelerated faster than ever before, and still, the name CZ Guest continued to command respect. Not because she chased relevance, but because she had already become part of history. Her story was no longer simply about fashion or society. It had become a story about character, about authenticity, about a woman who moved through changing times without allowing those changes to erase who she was. And in the years ahead, that character would become the foundation of one of the most enduring legacies in American social history.